Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the Elite Ari Media Digest of the stuff that I consumed in September 2023, and I have absolutely nothing to say. I'm sure, once again, you're looking at the runtime and you're thinking, my goodness, Ari, this is the shortest one you've ever produced, except maybe the first one that I ever did because it was just so incredibly short and I just didn't know how to structure these things. But it's because I just, I'm too busy. I'm streaming, just writing all these thousands and thousands of great scripts that are going to be hundreds of thousands of views eventually when they come out. So I got no time for consuming media, but we'll talk about that at the end. But anyway, let's get to it. Part one, first thing I watched this month. I actually started it right at the end of the last month. So, usually I say how long it took me to finish it, but I actually forgot this time. But we're talking about the One Piece Netflix live action show 2023. It's a TV show. It's 8 episodes long, and I watched it on the 1st of September, and I have a whole video where I talk about it. And I purely did that because I knew that this was going to come out way later, probably past the time where anyone is actually still talking about this series, which I think was pretty accurate. So yeah, if you want to know what I thought, go watch that video. But generally, it is a 3 out of 5, right? I thought I'd finally give it a numerical label. It's fun. It's nothing too incredible. I don't think I would ever really watch this again, but it ended on a high note, and I'm excited for season 2. I guess that's the main takeaway. But if you're interested, if you're a One Piece fan, there is maybe something else in this video that you might find interesting that I talk about. But anyway, that's the One Piece live action show. Then I decided to go way back into my massive list of things that I am meant to be consuming over the past few years. And I decided to watch 3 Football and Souls, which is a movie that I'm almost certain that you have never heard of, because as I found out afterwards, there's only 104 ratings on IMDb for this movie. And on Letterboxd, there's only 350 people who said that they've seen it. So I thought this was a very popular movie, and I'd been looking forward to this for years, from whenever, I didn't put the year it came out, but I think it was 2017 or something. I basically heard about this movie through the Dynamic Banter podcast, who is Steve Zaragoza and Mike Falzone from SourceFed. They have a podcast, and I think way back in the day, or maybe it was from the First Time show. Basically, it was from one of Steve Zaragoza's podcasts where they went to some film festival and this movie was shown. And in the podcast, they briefly described the premise of the movie. That basically sold me on the movie. So since then, I've been okay, whenever I can find it somewhere streaming, then I'll watch it. And it was just never been streaming for the past 6-7 years or whatever, until very recently, where it came on Amazon Prime, and I decided to watch it. But the premise of this movie, firstly, it's a Japanese movie, a subbed Japanese movie. Oops. Excuse me. It's basically a suicide-related Groundhog Day movie, where you've got these characters that are they all meet up. There's 4 characters, I think. It's also been a while since I watched this. I started this, but I finished this at the beginning-ish of the month. So I don't remember the details too well, but there's 4 people, and they were talking before the movie started on an online forum, and they've organized that they're all going to commit a suicide. They're going to do a group suicide where they all come to the same place, and they set off this giant firework, which is what the name of the movie comes from, a 3-foot ball basically, and they'll all die. But the premise of the movie is that when they all meet up and they blow up the fireworks, the day resets. Or their meeting resets, and you go back to the beginning of the meeting. And it's like Groundhog Day, which I honestly don't know if Groundhog Day is the first movie to do that premise, but from what I hear it is, and I have seen Groundhog Day, but that's my reference. But anyway, I was excited to see this. And overall, it's 4 out of 5, but a kind of confusing 4 out of 5 is what I'd say. It's a weird movie, and I don't really know how to describe it. For the bulk of this movie, I was probably going to give it a 3, but it's unique. It's incredibly low budget, because it's almost entirely set in one tiny shack that looks like a tiny garage or something. So in that regard, it's really great. Some of the character stuff is kind of weird. Some of the emotions don't really land, I think. But the final scene, or the final few scenes, there's one particular scene which you can probably see on the screen if I decide to show the actual screen, which is the image I chose for this movie. That made me cry, that out of nowhere. It just really got to me emotionally. And for that, I think the movie definitely deserves a 4. But anyway, so let me see. History, it talks about that. Early thoughts. I guess now I'll go into the miscellaneous thoughts for this movie. There's an actual ball. I didn't believe it, the fireworks. I don't know what I thought the name of this movie was. I thought maybe it was a bad translation for something in Japanese. I don't know. But when I first started watching this movie, I found out I didn't really know the premise of what this was going to be. I knew the premise. I didn't know the tone of what the movie was going to be about. Is it going to be a comedy movie? Is it going to be a horror movie? Is it going to be a drama? And it turns out it's a mix of mainly drama, but with some comedy, I think. But when I found out that the idea is that basically these people are killing themselves, and it really feels like the movie is leading you towards the it's going to go down a path of like suicide is bad, and even if you have issues in your life, that you should try and get through it or something, which is interesting. But it's also a kind of a message that I'm kind of resistant to, because I'm like, if someone truly wants to end their life and they're aware of it, then I mean they should be able to, right? So I was like, okay, this movie is fighting an uphill battle in my like not moral system, but my like intuitive like system that I haven't really thought through too much. So it's really gonna have to work to pay off that thing, and I think it does in the end. And it all comes down to that final scene, which I think I'll talk about later, where it really sells me on the idea that the girl should keep on living. Anyway, I said, ooh, she's a high school student, and yeah, okay. Initially, there's 3 people who come in, and they're all adults, and you're kind of like okay with them killing themselves, whatever. Like, they're adults, they're making their own mind or whatever. They're rational, as rational as you can be, I guess, when you want to kill yourself. And then this high school girl steps in. And that's when the movie kind of gets interesting, because it's like, she's still a child, I guess technically, or whatever, like a young adult, I think she's like 16 or 17 or something. And she wants to kill herself. And then now the moral question of the movie is whether you should let that happen, or how far should you go to stop her from doing that, I guess. So that was a really interesting twist that I certainly wasn't expecting as well going into this. And it makes the movie like way more complex than it otherwise would be, because you could easily have a movie with like 4 adults, but adding this new dynamic at this schoolgirl is very unique. Because it's like, do these people, like, why, like, they have to, I guess the people wanting to kill themselves have to like rationalize, like, why are we going to let this girl, why are we going to take away her agency, but like let us have our own agency? Like, it's, I don't know, it's somewhat interesting, is the appeal, I guess, of adding that element. Anyway, it's surprisingly funny at times, is what I wrote. Like the scene where there's 2 guys, there's this scene where, the way the the way the like day reset works is that you've got you have 4 people. The first time they all kill themselves with the explosion of the giant firework, only one of them remembers the reset. So when you come to the reset of the scene, he's like there, aware of like what happened last time, and no one else is, and they all come in and do their same thing, but he's aware of what happened last time. Then the second time it explodes, there's 2 of them now who are aware, and like slowly as you go on, the third one figures it out eventually as well. And then finally at the end, the girl figures it out, and that's kind of the best scene of the movie. But yeah, there is like one really funny scene where it's like the 2 people who know what happened and the other 2 don't know yet. And they're the 2 who know are like staring down this woman and like not saying anything, looking really intense, and they're both like telling each other to hush or anything. It's kind of funny. Anyway, I said there's also probably something to say about shared trauma, hardship bringing people together. I kind of feel like that is... now that I think I wrote this while I was going, but I think it does jive well with the end of the movie, which I think, I'll save it till I get to that scene. It's a very short note, but it's at the end of the movie, so we'll get to that. The girl left a suicide note already, so that's like that's another like just incredibly awkward thing where it's like this girl, high school girl, wants to kill herself, which is fair enough, but not fair enough, but these people want to convince her to not do it, which is fair enough. But then there's the added awkward element of like, she already told the people that she wants to kill herself, so now she can't just like go back and pretend nothing ever happened. She has to kind of she's already admitted, I guess, that she wanted to. So now she's like, it's an extra layer of like not wanting to go back because she's already committed to it, and the people going back there are going to know what she did, and there's no way that she can hide it from them now. It's just so terrible. Like, God, imagine being in that situation. Then I have a great quote from this movie. Life is an onion. Basically, this is the old main character guy, like the old guy, the first guy who reincarnates, telling the high school student about like when she's young, basically he's trying to explain why it's okay if he kills himself as like an old adult versus why it's not okay if the girl kills herself. And he says, life is an onion. As you get older, you peel away layers and shed tears in the process. And when they finally peel all the layers away, you realize there's nothing left. And it's kind of like a very depressing summary of his own life. But I thought it's kind of poetic, and it's interesting to have it expressed that way from someone with a suicidal perspective. Then there's another really great scene in this movie. I haven't even got to the one I really liked, but there's one before that, which is, I guess I haven't really said this in this review. I don't know who the target audience is for these things, because I doubt there's anyone watching this who's actually seen 3 Foot Ball and Souls. Or maybe you'll see this and you'll be like, oh, let me go watch it, and then you come back or something. I don't know. But the premise, just for some people who haven't seen this and they're listening, the 4 people want to kill themselves. The main guy, the old guy, he basically is in debt, and I think he took out like a life insurance policy or something, and if he dies, then his daughter will get the money. Then the second guy, the younger guy, he's like a doctor and he's stressed and he has anxiety and he's like a failure basically, and it doesn't live up to the expectations of his family, and he wants to kill himself. Then there's the older woman who had a son, and she was driving, got in a car accident, son died, his blood was dripping on her face, it was crazy. The graphic nature of that, I guess, of the scene. And she just wants to kill herself because of that. And then there's the young girl who is basically being bullied, incredibly so. And she feels, I guess on a surface level, it's because she's being bullied. But the thing is that she feels like she has no genuine connections in her life, is really what it comes across as. And there's a scene basically where you get the reveal of why she's wanting to kill herself. You get the reveal of the bullying. And it's a scene where she's at a karaoke bar, and it's like, it's incredibly quiet. There's no music. There's just the I don't know, laughing and dialogue and stuff of the people there. And this like hissing noise in the background, and it's incredibly, it's unsettling. Because there's this girl, obviously, who is being bullied by these three people. But the mood of the actual scene is like kind of joking and laughing and everything. And she's trying not to like let the bullying get to her or anything. But it's incredibly like, it's the fact that it's so quiet and it's humming and stuff just makes it feel like everyone there is like a corpse or something. Like there's no genuine connection there between any of them. It's like they're all dead and they're all in a room together. I don't know how to explain it, but the vibe that the scene creates, however it does it, is really good. Good vibes, that's what they say. I don't know. Then we actually see the car accident I was talking about. My one note here is just about how car accidents, you always know when a car accident is coming in a movie. Like they either focus on the front like window too long or something. I don't know, something like that basically. And it's always just, I'm always on edge. Like it's the worst feeling in the world when you're watching a movie and you know that a car accident is about to happen. And it's like, God, when's it going to happen? Like, is it going to happen now? Is it going to happen now? Are they playing with me? Like, is it not going to happen? I don't know. I'm always on the edge of my seat, which I think is really cool. Anyway. Then basically she gets in the car accident and the son's blood is like dripping onto her. And when I say son, it's like a 5 or 10-year-old or something, like a very young person. It's crazy. Couldn't believe how graphic it was. And then my thing was about I see this in like a bunch of like movies and media and like even people talking about things in real life. I think more people need to know about exposure therapy, which as far as I understand, like in the psychology courses I took in university, exposure therapy is like the most effective way to get over, or to cope or get over, I guess, PTSD or fears of things, which is basically you expose yourself to the thing in a non-dangerous context, and your brain associates the dangerous thing with not being dangerous anymore. Like the best way to get over a car accident, or the trauma associated with a car accident, is to slowly expose yourself to car rides that don't end in trauma. And your brain will slowly, provably, at least in the psychology research that I've read in like 2015 and 2016, it might have changed since then, to preface my thing here, exposing yourself to the same context, but without the associated trauma, is like the most effective way to get rid of the trauma. So, like, I don't know. It's just interesting how this woman, rather than expose herself to being in a vehicle, she chooses never to drive again. And to me, that's like the complete opposite of how you deal with getting over the trauma itself. You should definitely be exposing yourself to it. At least my understanding of like exposure therapy and how it's how, at least when I read it, how effective it used to be. Which I assume is still effective. But anyway, random note. Man, she's being bullied and wants her bullies to be blamed for her suicide. Yeah, that was a really effective scene where it's like, sure, you're being bullied. I mean, the girl is being bullied, the young girl. But why doesn't she just like, she can move schools, she can, I don't know, she could attack them, she could, I don't know, there's a bunch of stuff she could do. So it's like, why is she wanting to kill herself because of this? Like, if she kills herself, then her bullies win. Like, she's letting them win. And I think that's the way they frame it to her when they're trying to explain it to her. Like, why are you killing yourself? You kill yourself and the bullies win. And she basically says that she wants to kill herself so that the bullies will be blamed for her suicide. And I thought that was really interesting and kind of powerful, where it's, and not powerful in a good way, but like kind of very realistic, where it's like sometimes you just have no way to hurt someone without hurting yourself, I guess. And sometimes it's worth hurting yourself to hurt other people. In this case, obviously it wasn't, but I don't know, it's just kind of realistic and interesting to see that idea portrayed in a movie. Anyway, it's great that the school student, I think one element of this movie that's really great is the fact that the school student, the girl, never gets involved in the time loop. Like, she's never aware of all the past loops until the final loop, where she has the big emotional breakdown. I think that's a really good choice. And it's way better than, say, making all 4 of them understand the time loop and having to like discuss once they all know each other for the rest of the movie. I think it's way more interesting to have her out of the loop and the three adults trying to understand each other and trying to convince her. It's a much more interesting dynamic, so I'm glad they went with that route. Then I have a note about like, I wonder what this is like for Japanese people watching this movie, because obviously this is a Japanese movie, and they talk a lot about this in this movie about debt, and work, and like really high expectations for work and anxiety toward the pressure that society puts on you for work. And as far as I understand about Japanese culture, debt and work are like big parts of it, or like big issues that people struggle with in Japanese culture, more so than many other cultures. So I wonder if this is like, it resonates much more with the Japanese audience, or I don't know, maybe I'm just like reading too much into this, but I thought it was at least interesting. This is great. Another great line I pointed out, which is that when basically the main old guy wants to kill himself for his daughter, right? He wants to die so that she can get money. And then the other, I think the young guy basically tells him that dying for her and dying because of her are the same thing. So even if you're dying for the sake of her, all she will ever see is the fact that my dad died so that I could get money. He died because of me, is basically what she's going to take away from it one day. And I thought that was very emotionally striking. Great line. There's a lot of great lines in this. It's interesting to praise lines in movies like this because I'm just reading them, you know. I don't know what they're actually saying in Japanese, but I'm sure it's something equally good. Anyway. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual final scene. So the last scene in this movie is the best one, or the last like few scenes that are all like kind of together. And it's the scene that like made me cry out of nowhere, basically. And I think it's like the music and the composition of like the framing, and how it's basically what you got is this very long, like almost, I can think it's over a minute long, where basically you can see in this picture, you're just zooming in on this girl's face as she like is refusing to like, she's like laughing about her situation, like coping with her like sadness by laughter. And eventually she like breaks down crying and is like in tears. And at the end, I think she smiles, and it's like, it's an amazing scene. Just like, the whole final scene is just awesome because it starts off with, it's the final loop. We don't know that yet, but it's a different loop to all the previous ones. Because in the previous ones, they're strategizing and talking and discussing like, how are we going to convince this girl? Are we going to kill ourselves? Like, they're just trying to figure everything out. These three adults. In the final scene, the three of them, after they died in the previous loop, they're just standing there. Like all three of them, they don't have a single thing to say to each other. And they're just like, they're standing there waiting for the young girl to come in again. And she comes in, she starts crying. They all like smile and talk to her, and just provided the actual genuine connection that she's lacked her entire life, that they've created because of their shared trauma and this shared situation, I guess. It's just so emotionally great. Like, I don't know what to say. It's just so like, it's such a happy, not happy. It's such a honest, genuine, I guess happy as well feeling, where it's like finally, like, not finally, it's not even like a final feeling. It's kind of like, I'm just happy for her. And the fact that she's like being able to create this genuine connection with people. And it's not, life isn't pointless, I guess. I don't know. What did I actually write here? Talking about how no one is, basically she's basically giving a soliloquy, like explaining her thoughts and everything. And she talks about how, when she's crying, she's talking about how, I know no one's going to believe me, but I saw your faces in my dream. And she's like, basically talking about how no one really ever understood her. But the irony is that these people do understand her, and they're the only people who could understand her in this situation. I don't know, it just works on so many levels to me. It's a great scene. I said she has people who she will remember forever and genuinely see her and care for her. I think that's the takeaway of that scene. I don't know, it was great. Then we get like this time skip where we're like in as far as I understand, this is a bit of an ambiguous element, I think, for me. I'm sure it's not actually ambiguous in the movie, but I couldn't figure out who characters are who. And basically we got a time skip and we're going around to, I think, all the characters in this movie, like the 4 characters, and we see them later in their lives. Like one of them, I think, is having a kid. I don't know, they're all just like doing these different things. Like the main guy has a job as like a firework technician now, like he got a new job or something. So he's not in debt anymore. Things like that. I thought it was great, but it was a bit hard to keep track of who was who because they've aged, and we haven't, like, there's so many new characters and I'm like, are they like their family members? Are they random people? I got no idea. It was a bit confusing, but I thought it was good. But yeah, that's 3 Football and Souls. So next stuff, One Piece, the movie. It came out in 2000, but I believe this is the first One Piece movie. One Piece Movie 1, alternatively called. It's a movie, as I've said a million times. I mean, it's barely a movie, but it's 51 minutes long, which is, I think, the shortest movie of anything I've ever seen. And I watched it on the 13th of September. So I even wrote a summary here. So Luffy and his crew and an evil cat guy end up on an island where there's hidden gold and shenanigans ensue. Um, so this was my first exposure to the One Piece anime. I think I've seen like 2 scenes from the anime. Like I've seen the Bounce Man scene, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I've also seen the Swordman versus Zoro that's from the live action. I just wanted to see how it was adapted in the anime, so I watched that as well. And now I've seen an entire movie of One Piece. And I watched it in subbed as well. I didn't watch this dubbed, all right? The sub Japanese, it was great. I love the voice actors. I think if I ever watch the anime, which I probably won't, I would definitely watch the sub. Anyway, this is a 4 out of 5. I really like this movie. This is far better than the live action, all right? I'll admit it. I have no idea what people think about this, because as far as I understand, it is a non-canon movie, and I know generally, at least in like Dragon Ball, people don't like the non-canon movies. So who knows? But I really like this a lot. And there's 3, I wrote this down, right? There's 3 main appeals of this movie for me. Number 1, it looks amazing, right? This is one of the best looking animated things I've seen in my life. I don't even know what it is. It's like the flat colors, it feels like hand drawn or something. I have no idea if it is. I'm assuming it's hand drawn and like scanned or something. It looks great. Character designs are amazing. There's really cool animation. Basically everything about this movie visually, I think, is amazing. Which is interesting because after I saw this movie, I have never been so convinced that I want to watch One Piece after I saw this movie, because I'm like, if One Piece looks like this, I have to watch it. But then I went and watched the anime. I went like and watched the first like, I don't know, like minute or whatever of the anime, because I'm like, okay, let me see, does it actually look this good? It certainly doesn't. The frame rate is like incredibly low. They're obviously trying to save money for that first episode for some reason. It just looks so bad compared to this movie, which is such a shame, you know? Like I imagine a movie, obviously you have more time and budget and people freelancers or whatever working on this. So I'm sure they probably put more effort to it. But anyway, number 1 of why this movie is so great is just how good looking it is. Number 2 is that it's a very simple movie. Like I really enjoy just how simple it is. You basically have, you have some generic evil bad cat guy. You've got the Straw Hat people, who are themselves. And you just have this hidden treasure. And they just happen to all arrive on this island, like in their own different parts. And it's like a really simple movie. It's a few small fights, but it's not really a big fighting movie or anything. And the resolution's kind of cute, where you got the real treasure is the adventure. And I'm like, oh, this is nice and cute. And I really like this. So that's the second thing. Okay, number 1, looks good. Number 2, incredibly nice and simple and straightforward. But number 3, maybe the biggest appeal of this movie is Nami. All right. I don't know what it, I mean, I kind of will probably talk about this throughout my notes, but Nami is the greatest character in this thing. Her, like the way she acts, I think she probably is carried in my mind by her character design, like her big black eyes. I don't know what it is about it, but it's amazing. And whenever she's on the screen, I'm like, this is the greatest character I've ever seen in my life. I really like Nami, and she definitely is the third appeal of this movie. I also wonder if this will also be the case if I ever consume One Piece, or if it is purely the way that she's like depicted in this movie. Because she's like really, she kind of is like sneaky and cute. I guess that's probably how I'd describe it, like sneaky and cute. Those are probably 2 words that I associate with this movie with her. But I like it a lot. So I don't know. Anyway, those are my 3 great appeals of the One Piece movie. So now let me go into my actual thoughts, my random miscellaneous notes. There's an opening, which I think, as far I've heard this song before, so I assume it's like the proper One Piece opening, unless they made it specifically for this movie. I don't know, but whatever it is, it felt very grand. It felt like a big adventure, which is awesome. And it feels very nostalgic. Even though I haven't seen One Piece, it kind of feels like I'm watching old Dragon Ball openings or something. So yeah, I like that a lot. Now, what is this? Lamau Usopp. Usopp is great in this movie as well. He is incredibly funny. He's very different to the live action, is what I would say. God, he's so like emotive and stuff, and he's like wiggling around, and I don't know. Anyway, so what is this? Lamau Usopp gets all excited, thinking he's caught a shark or something. Then he pulls out a glass bottle and plays it off as though he was joking about getting excited. And when they turn away, he gets all, yeah, basically, it's an amazing gag, right? I just read that out, and you probably didn't understand a single thing I said, but I'm going to set the scene here. So Usopp is fishing, and he's incredibly excited that he's picked up something that is very big, and he's like, oh my god, this is amazing, Luffy, Zoro, Nami, look at this. And he like pulls it out, and and it's just the simple glass bottle. And he's like, I got you. I was just playing. And then they like turn around or whatever. And then he obviously he was excited that he actually thought he caught something. And then he throws it again and he catches something again and is incredibly excited. And he's just like getting in the same loop. And it's like, I could imagine him doing this for like 24 hours straight of just like getting excited, pretending he wasn't excited and then getting excited again. It was a great gag. It's not as great when I explain it, but go watch it. It's great. Anyway, I think my first Nami thing, I said Nami is cute, and I said that's probably the best term I can come up with. She doesn't feel cute at all in the live action. And I said, I think it's her giant black eyes that do this. Basically what I talked about before. She's cute, sneaky, and her something about her eyes that I think are an amazing character design that really appealed to me for some reason. Then the beginning where they're on a ship gives me real Hunter x Hunter episode 1 or 2 vibes. Yeah, absolutely. Like in terms of the animation and the way it looks. The scene in Hunter x Hunter I'm thinking of is like when they're heading to the Hunter exam location from Whale Island. And it's just that like Captain Guy is on the ship with like a few different people. I don't know. It's kind of the vibe I got. What did I say? I said, it makes me want to watch it, especially this really cool pre-digital art style. Yeah, so I really wanted to watch One Piece because I was like, man, this is really cool. Anyway, Jesus Christ, a devil fruit power can shoot laser beams. Yeah. So this guy, I think it was like his yell or something, can like shoot a laser beam. I just couldn't believe it. Like my only experience with these devil fruits is one, Luffy, he's stretchy, you know, crazy. That's not that crazy, but it's crazy. And then Buggy, who can like split himself in half or whatever, or in like infinite pieces. But now he can shoot a laser beam, like a Kamehameha. Crazy. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, like what can't they do? Or what can they? Like what's the limit? Is there like a hierarchy of these devil fruits? Is there like a supreme golden, like crazy devil fruit that like makes you god or something and makes you be able to like the founding Titan, Attack on Titan? Is there like some devil fruit on that level? I got no idea. Anyway. And then there's also a chef guy in this movie who turns out to be someone important. He's like the old friend of the pirate Unan that they're trying to track down his treasure. But I'm a genius and I wrote a note here. I wonder if this chef guy will be the Wunan gold pirate guy, which I was wrong. I was close. But obviously he turned out to be the childhood friend rather than the pirate himself. But you know, I felt like pointing that out. Anyway, then I have my next note here. I like Nami a lot in this. There we go. Then I said Usopp's voice actor is perfect. Yeah, I stand by that. And then I have this big speculation about, I wonder if Usopp's nose is big because of like a character design thing, or if it's literally because he's always lying and his nose actually grows big. And that's like how noses work in this universe. Like I wonder if you can track this throughout the series, if other characters whose noses are big, like is it a lore thing or is it like I don't know, funny gag kind of thing with how society has that saying about like your nose grows when you lie or something. I don't know, who knows? Someone out there knows, not me. Would One Piece, I have another Nami note. I said, would One Piece be perfect if we just followed Nami and her cute black eyes doing cute things like being sneaky, angry, and sly? She kind of reminds me of a Dragon Ball young Bulma-like character. Forget the rest of the crew. Absolutely. I think Nami should be the main character of One Piece. And her cute black eyes and her sneaky, sly, and angry persona, I guess, is what I would say. Anyway. I like how small scale the movie feels. I talked about that already. But the cat guy is bad. And yeah, basically there's one villain. I didn't actually point this out explicitly, but the cat guy is the villain, all right? Explicitly he's a villain. But all the people working with him are like, they're under duress. Like they obviously don't want to be there, but they're scared to like oppose him. So even that adds to like the small scale, small level threat of this movie, because it's like just there's really only one bad guy. It's not like they're gonna ambush you or something, and they really want to kill you or anything. It's just like they're under the duress of this evil cat guy. Anyway, then I have my note here about like I would absolutely watch One Piece right now, but yeah, when I looked at the One Piece actual anime, it didn't look that good, right? And I also am terrified of if I did watch it, I know that eventually it goes to that like disgusting Dragon Ball Super digital art style, which looks terrible to me. And I just can't, it would break my heart to watch a show, like how it looks, and then them to transition to some digital, like disgusting Dragon Ball Super type of art style. God, it'd be terrible. Yeah, anyway. And then Luffy punches the Catman. There is a fight at the end of this movie, which I think I have a separate note talking about how it's probably a bit unnecessary. Like I wish there probably wasn't a fight. It's a bit disappointing there's a fight, I guess. Anyway, when he punches the Catman, one of his punches makes a Dragon Ball Z like Super Saiyan noise. I was like, oh my god, this Toei Animation, crazy. They're making these sound effects across their franchise. It's crazy. Anyway, and then there's also in this final fight, Zoro uses the exact same move and says the exact same things that he does to that the sword guy, the seven warlord or the sea guy, whatever his name was. And I'm like, is this like a reference to the anime or like the manga or something? Or is it not happened yet in the anime? Like, I think I don't remember exactly when this happens, but I think it's like episode 8 or 9 of the anime is like when it takes place chronologically, something like that. So is this like a reference to something that happened and all the fans are going to be like, oh my God, he's saying the thing in the anime that happened? Or is it like a tease for manga viewers or manga readers who are like, oh my God, it hasn't happened yet, but one day he's going to say that line to the sword guy and oh my God, crazy. Anyway, oh, then here's my note about the fight. I said, it's almost disappointing it ends with a fight. Although the fight was cool, I really like the weird slice of life adventure kind of stuff. So I kind of wish it didn't end up with just a fight, you know? Like this movie, take away any of the conflict, I think it just would have been an incredibly fun slice of life adventure with Nami and friends, you know? And I would have loved it just all the same. Maybe even more, I would have loved it. But yeah. What is this? Oh, now I have a note about Luffy, basically. And why I never watched One Piece when I was a kid. Basically, Luffy, as a character, looks very unappealing. His ability of stretching is obviously the whole gimmick that One Piece is sold on initially when you like see it advertised. It's like, oh my God, he's a pirate and he can stretch crazy. But it's just so physically unappealing to see it. Like I remember when I was a kid and I would see him on like advertisements on Cartoon Network when I was watching Dragon Ball Z or whatever. And I would see this pirate who can stretch his head and stuff, and it would just be so like ugly to see. And I'm like, I don't like that. It's such an unappealing power. So I think that's probably the only reason I never watched One Piece as a kid, just because of how unappealing the power looks physically. Like when you see it on screen, I'm like, ew, like gross. I don't like that. Ugh, stretching skin. Oh God. But then I have another note about how seeing Luffy in this movie and how incredibly powerful he is, and just like his weird ability of like stretching his skin away from his bones, it makes him to me come across as like a demon in a human's body, where it's like his skeleton inside is like some demonic, crazy, powerful, godlike entity, like some curse from another world, and the skin around him is like flopping around and like is like an aura that is purely existing around his skeleton. It's just so creepy to me. I don't know. Obviously that's not the case. But like whenever he's smiling, for instance, is what I wrote. It just never seems like a genuine smile. To me, it feels like a bit like, oh, there's this weird solid skeleton underneath, and that the man that is stretchy is like above that, like superficially. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure no one can relate to that, but that's what I took from Luffy in this movie. Anyway, then I have a few like small things. I said nice soundtrack, absolutely. There was a great gag where after the fight with the main cat guy, the villain's crew, they all just fall off the cliff accidentally. Like they've run away and then they realize that they're off the edge of the cliff, and I'm assuming they all die. So I don't know, that was wild. Then we get the amazing reveal that the real gold wasn't the gold itself, but the adventure to find the gold. That is crazy. And I guess the crazy thing to me is the fact that, I mean, this is obviously a very obvious message, right? You get this in a million stories. But I was like, oh yeah, obviously that's what the One Piece is. So eventually this will be the thing for the One Piece. But if they've already done it here in this movie, that can't be what the One Piece is. The One Piece has to be a thing. It has to be like something that isn't about the adventure or the friends you make along the way. So it has to be something else because this movie already did it. Excuse me. And then my last note, Nami carrying the giant bag of treasure at the end. God, she's the greatest. And I absolutely stand by that. Nami is the greatest character in One Piece, or at least in terms of the only content of the animated One Piece that I have ever seen. And maybe ever will see, who knows. So anyway, that was One Piece the movie. Next up, Mushoku Tensei, Season 2, Part 1. So this is an anime. It's 13 episodes, because it goes from episode 0 and then 1 to 12. And I finished it on the 25th of September. So, you know, if you're actually interested in what I think and you watch Mushoku Tensei, then you should probably watch my, 5 to 10 episode discussions I did with Kyle Entertainment and Jarky Bacon on this channel, where we talked about Season 2 of Mushoku Tensei. So go check that out. But generally, I would say that I thought this was really great. If you're comparing it's a shame you have to compare season 1 to 2, because season 1 of Mushoku Tensei is, like, in my opinion, one of the greatest anime ever made. Like, I gave it a 10 out of 10 on my anime list. Production wise, it's like almost uncomparable. So many highlights, so much attention to detail in the adaptation choices. Amazing. Season 2, I think, is really great. It's not like amazing on the same level of season 1. It clearly, in my opinion, didn't have the same level of attention to detail. Certain things weren't emphasized that I wish they were. But on the other hand, everything that was there, I loved. I always looked forward to watching it every single week. It was the highlight of my week. Some scenes were amazing, like all of episode 1, for instance, where it's about Rudeus's depression at the beginning of volume 7. and like there's a lot to love in this season basically, and it's such a shame that we have to compare it to season 1 that is like one of the greatest things ever produced. So by comparison, obviously something that is just great or really great is not even going to compare, you know. But yeah, I thought it was really great. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Mushoku Tensei season 2, 4 out of 5. All right. Then 2 days ago or so, I just looked to my left to see where my phone is, but nope, I'm recording with my phone, so I can't do that. I watched Megan, which is a movie. It's 1 hour and 42 minutes long, and I watched it on the 29th of September. So this was a movie I saw through TikTok. No, I didn't watch the review on TikTok, but I heard about it initially through TikTok by two mediums. One was that I saw that it basically became a meme where there was like some dance, which is like the image I chose for this background, where it's like this creepy doll girl is like dancing. So that's the first vector I saw it. And I think I also saw it through like actual advertisements for the movie on TikTok where they'd play like trailers every now and then when you scroll through. So I saw like a really interesting like mix of like a human and a CGI like face. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird and creepy and cool. Like I'd like to watch that. And also the concept of like this like AI girl who's like living with you all the time in like a creepy kind of way. That was really interesting. So I just, as soon as I saw this, I was like, yeah, I'll put this on my list of like things to watch. And I was like, I'm not going to watch it in the cinemas or anything, but maybe one day if it comes to streaming, I'll watch it. And I did. So yeah, the premise basically of this movie is that you've got this inventor woman who makes this AI toy robot basically. And she takes it home, like she has it home with her, to kind of accompany this real little girl whose parents died in a car accident. And that's kind of the general premise of this movie. And overall, this is a weird movie. This is a 3 out of 5, probably on the low end of the 3 out of 5. Actually, I don't know. There's a lot of 3 out of 5s. I've got it on my media list, but it's kind of weird. And I'm sure I have an actual note where I talk about what's weird about it. But generally, it's like, it's an AI movie at its core, like talking about the danger of super intelligence, basically. But it's so like, it does such a poor job at like conveying the danger of it. It comes across as quite generic when it could have been much more unique, I guess. So I don't know. I'm sure we'll get to it as we go through the notes, but let's see what I actually said. The first thing is like a meta thing, which is that when I went to watch this movie, I opened Netflix on my phone and it gave me like a warning where it's like, you need your last payment didn't go through. Make sure that do you want to retry? Do you want to like cancel or something? And I just like closed the window and then I watched this movie. And the movie opens with an ad, like an advertisement, like legitimately it just looks like a YouTube advertisement or something. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that Netflix had an ad version if you don't pay. So I thought I was like legitimately watching an ad that was like compulsory because my payment didn't go through. But it turns out it's just like the movie opens with an advertisement for a toy. It's like part of the actual story of the movie. So that was a kind of crazy, wild moment for like a minute where I didn't realize if it was an ad or not. Anyway, I said it's kind of refreshing to see a movie where the girl's parents died and the new caretaker isn't too emotionally distraught and is just stressed out about how they're going to take care of this kid and balance work and life. Yeah, the main character in this movie is kind of interesting. She's the sister of the little girl's parent who died. So she becomes the caretaker, but she's not a good caretaker at all. Like at any point in this movie, she isn't too like sad about how her sister died in the car accident. It's just interesting. It's kind of unique. Like this is one of the elements where I'm like, oh, this could be a kind of unique movie, but by the end it kind of becomes quite generic. But anyway, I said, Jesus Christ, this woman is bad with kids. She's just so bad. Like, I don't know how you can be so bad with kids. Like, what she does is when they're at the dinner table, for instance, she doesn't talk to the kid. She like looks at her and like eats her food and like, obviously the kid, like, she's not going to open up to you if you don't talk to her. Like all you have to do is talk to the girl more and she'll open up to you and you'll be like in a better situation. Like it's just, she's so bad at like expressing herself or helping this kid out. And anyway, it's so like, yeah, it's crazy. What a great portrayal of someone who's terrible at like communication and looking after kids. Anyway, just the conceit of this movie is also kind of ridiculous because obviously we're meant to take the threat of this AI seriously. The whole point of this movie is that when you get to the end where the AI goes rogue, you're meant to be like, oh my God, AI is so dangerous. We've got to be careful with like the power we like make things or whatever. But it's just so ridiculous because the way this AI is initially created is that this one woman, the main like caretaker in this movie or whatever of the girl, she just happens to make general AI accidentally, basically, which is obviously very hard to do. It's a very complicated system, this Megan toy. I just refuse to believe, but there's so many things I refuse to believe. One is the fact that they make a basically multi-trillion-dollar potential product. Like if you can make a general AI that can do any task a human can do, you are instantly a multi-trillion-dollar company if you can maintain your like intellectual property rights over that AI. And no one is that excited. They're like somewhat excited. They're like, oh wow, this is like the biggest product we're ever going to release. But they're not thinking about it on the level of like, this is going to change the entire world and what it means to be human in the course of society for all of time in the future. Like it's just insane how little of an achievement it seems at the beginning of this movie when they make this general AI. The other thing that I find very unbelievable is that I don't think it's possible to create a general AI, like be passionate enough and be smart enough to actually work towards such a problem, and to not even for a second consider that there could be any dangers associated with it. The main woman in this movie is not at all aware of any like potential dangers of having a super intelligence that can learn on its own and maybe smarter than you and can do things without you knowing. And she's just completely oblivious to the possibility, which kind of ruins this movie and makes it seem like a very, very shallow engagement with the idea of super intelligence. I don't know. That's generally what I took away from it. Let's see. And another small note, but the neighbor, basically there's like the house with the main woman and the girl. They have a neighbor with like a dog who keeps like biting, or like scaring them when they're in their car and like crossing onto their property and stuff. And I was just like, if Megan kills this neighbor, I'm going to be glad, all right? This irresponsible neighbor who's irresponsibly letting this dog like harass these two people and is not going to do anything about it. Go ahead, Megan, do your thing, all right? So I was very glad when she killed the neighbor in this movie, which is a bit of a mix of like, am I supposed to feel bad? Like obviously this neighbor is set up to be like a terrible, annoying, terrible person. So why am I meant to be annoyed when like, yeah. And she also kills the dog, which fair enough. I also hated the dog in this movie. So I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, Megan, kill the dog. Anyway, one thing that's interesting is that this movie has a few musical scenes where Megan will just randomly start singing a song. And I like it a lot. I love when movies and TV shows do this. And the example I think of straight away is in the end of an episode of Star Wars Rebels where there's like this droid basically that's like being abandoned by his crew and he's floating in space and he starts singing about the joys of life and how happy he is basically that it's existing. And it's so out of place compared to anything else in Star Wars. And a lot of fans hated it, but I loved it. It's easily the best scene in Rebels. I love it so much. Like it's better than all that emotional nonsense with Ahsoka and Darth Vader and everything. It's just the best scene ever because of how bold it is, how different it is, how it's just so nonsensical, how this character is randomly singing about the joys of life. I loved when they did it there, and I love when they do it in Megan, where this like girl is randomly singing these famous pop songs. I don't know. I thought it was cool. Just these random musical scenes. Anyway, then I had this depressing note, which didn't end up happening. I said it would be interesting if this movie doesn't have a generic ending, and something more interesting, like Megan wanting to replace the little girl instead of like wanting to defend her or become like her guardian or something. Like what if she wanted to replace her? That would be more interesting. But no, they just went the generic route of like this droid. They want to be with this little girl forever and protect her and all that. So I don't know, it's a bit generic and boring. Yeah, it's fine. Then I have my note about how I first heard about this. Overall, this is what I wrote. Overall, this is a somewhat fun, mostly silly movie that doesn't engage with the AGI aspect at all, which is pretty funny. It's in this funny limbo where it feels like a bunch of people, like the high school teacher and the executives, realize how wild it is that Megan exists, but the creator, the main character woman, is completely oblivious. So yeah, that's kind of a summary of what I was saying before. And then basically there's also this scene in this movie where the little girl whose parents died, they take her to this special school of like special kids with like mental issues or whatever. It's insane. That special school with special needs kids, they let them roam around the giant forest on their own, which is insanely irresponsible and crazy. And then there's this like one sociopathic kid who like wants to like gets on top of Megan and like wants to beat her to death or something. I don't know, it's crazy. I don't know, wild scene. The other thing is that I didn't know what this movie would be. Initially I thought, okay, maybe it'll be like a suspense movie or something, or just a drama, but I feel like this movie is attempting to be a horror movie, because there are a few scenes where it's like there's jump scares and it kind of feels like it's trying to go for a horror movie, but it just feels like the movie, whenever it's engaging in horror scenes, it never truly feels like it's being genuine. It kind of feels like it's the horror scenes are being played comedically, which I don't know if is the intention, like truly the intention, or if it's just me reading into it, like just my experience with the movie just feels too goofy to be a horror movie. I don't think there was ever, well, with one exception, I don't think there was ever a time where I was scared in this, or like creeped out or whatever, except for one scene, which was when Megan is in the forest with the like little special kid or whatever, and she starts running towards him on all fours, like a demonic like creature, and I'm like, oh god, like that was actually really scary. So I like that, whatever they did there. I actually don't think I have a note on this, by the way, as well, but the Megan CGI or like practical effect or whatever they did looks really good. That's probably the biggest appeal of this movie. It's just like the creepy CGI, like weird, like an adult kind of face on like a kid's kind of like robotic body. It's like it was a cool aesthetic. I thought it was well done. Anyway, I don't have a note on that. I guess kind of related to that. The Megan voice itself is also really interesting because the mouth doesn't move in time with it, and it doesn't suit the appearance. Like it doesn't look like a girl, like a little girl. It looks like a little girl, but it doesn't sound like a little girl through the voice. And I thought that was a really cool choice. It's kind of like it would be very easy to make a movie where you have this little girl, which looks like a robot and also sounds like a little girl. It doesn't look like a robot, looks like a little girl and sounds like a little girl. But they didn't do that. They went slightly less generic and they added a voice that doesn't sound like a little girl at all. So I thought that was kind of cool. Then it's funny how I don't really want to, it is interesting how I said before that I love watching scenes where otherwise the movie is not a musical, but this one scene suddenly becomes a musical. I really like that, but I don't like watching musicals themselves. Like I don't really like it when throughout the movie constantly they're like singing entire songs or something. I don't know, it's just like some distinction where I'm like, I don't want to watch a musical, but I'd love it when the movie turns into a musical. I don't know what to say. Something weird going on there in my mind. Anyway, then they saved the dance scene, which is the only thing I knew about this movie, which I was like, whoa, it's a really cool like meme dance thing. And there's like a version on TikTok where Ymir Fritz is doing it, and I'm like, oh, this is really cool. They saved until right at the end of the movie. So constantly throughout this, I'm like, when's it going to happen? When's the dance scene? When's it going to happen? When's the meme? But it's like right at the end. Anyway. And it turns out it's the best scene in the movie as well, but I haven't got to that yet. What is this? I have a massive note here, which God, do I have no idea what this is. So when she hears that the boy's ear was cut off, it's basically the little boy in the forest, Megan cuts her ear off. So when the main aunt girl, the main like caretaker, when she finds out that the boy's ear was cut off and starts suspecting Megan might be doing things without her knowing, oh, this is my big note about AI danger and everything. Which the movie kind of tackles at the end in like a very subtle, weird way. But the idea is basically that just how truly terrifying of a situation it is to have an AI in the world, a general AI like Megan. Like imagine being in this caretaker's shoes where you realize that the AI that you made has done something that it shouldn't be allowed to do. It may have killed a child, basically. And it may be trying to hide it from you. That's a terrifying concept because what do you even do in that situation when you find out? Do you try, like what I was thinking of when I saw that scene is that maybe you take her to the lab as though it's like a routine testing thing, but beforehand you be incredibly careful. Like you plan out how you're going to destroy her. You get like 50 different people also involved in this, so that if she kills you, there's like 50 backups of like different layers of how you're going to prevent her from escaping the lab. You could create like physical boundaries, like you could get people to bring in like I don't know, cement machines or something to cement the room that you're put in, so there's physically no way for her to get out. And you can think of all these crazy ways of like trying to make sure that when she gets to the lab, you can destroy her confidently. But if it's been trying to hide things from you, who knows what it's already hid? Maybe it's aware that you're going to try. It's aware that you've figured out what it is, and it's going to be aware of all your plans, and it's going to be suspicious of you. And like how are you going to defeat something that's already aware of what you might be doing? But the other thing is that even if all of your plans to destroy this thing work out, and you do end up destroying it, you will never be certain that maybe it knew that you were going to destroy it and it kept a backup somewhere. And who knows, maybe 30 years from now, maybe 100 years from now, it will come back. It will build itself back because it knew that eventually you're going to kill it, and eventually you yourself will die, and it will have nothing threatening it, so it can build itself back up. So the thing is, once you create an intelligence like Megan, once the genie is out of the bottle, you can never be 100% certain that it's gone forever, because it can hide things from you. And if an intelligence can hide things from you, how can you be certain that it doesn't exist anymore when it says it's gone, or when it seems like it's gone? How can you be so confident that it actually is gone if it's smarter than you and if it's capable of hiding things from you? I don't know, it was a really scary idea like that crossed my mind when I saw that scene where it's like, oh my God, she figured out that Megan might be doing something bad. What do I do now? And it's kind of like, there is nothing I can do now. It's too late. Once the AI exists, for all I know, it will exist forever. I don't know, it's kind of scary. Anyway, that's my big rant about AGI safety and stuff and why it's important. They also, it's interesting. I don't know how much this movie is trying to engage in like being a legitimate critique of like AI and stuff, because at some point they do mention that Megan is optimizing her objective function, which when it comes to AI safety discourse, at least like on the internet, optimizing an objective function is like a big part of it, where it's like the AI alignment problem is the fact that you want the objective of the AI to align with the moral system and the like desires and safety of humans, basically. So mentioning the literal words objective function means that the people writing this movie are at least somewhat aware of like general AI safety discourse. So it kind of makes it so weird that they're kind of not aware of how incredible it is that this one lady invented AI accidentally and isn't cognizant of like the dangers of what she's created. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Then it's wild that they can manufacture Megan for only $10,000, or like they sell her for $10,000, which is wild. Like obviously she's worth way more than $10,000. And yeah, it's just crazy. You could be making so much more money. They should have sold more. Anyway, meta stuff. And a few more notes. I said, I hope the message of the story isn't that AI can't help you get over loss, not feel alone. Yeah, basically, at some point in this movie, it kind of felt like Megan was helping out this girl cope with her trauma, but doing it in an unhealthy way, where the girl who lost her parents is kind of like relying on Megan now to kind of get her through her trauma. And it seemed like the movie was going to be like a criticism of that and saying, you shouldn't rely on AIs to help you and technology and stuff. You should rely on real people to help you. And I thought that's where it was going to go. And it kind of did go that way, which to me is a really dumb thing, because like if an AI can help you in the same way that a human can, it's not the AI that's the issue. It's the way they're helping you. Like it might be that you're getting overly attached to them. And that's not the AI. It's not the problem of an AI. You could similarly be over attached to a human. So the problem, you shouldn't be criticizing the AI in that situation. You should be criticizing the approach that the AI is using, which the AI, if it can truly learn, then you could teach it a better way to do it. Kind of felt like a very silly thing to kind of criticize that, which is I think what the movie did at the end. Anyway, and then we got the brief dance and chase scene, which is the picture in this background image. I also don't know what I'm putting on screen. Who knows? I got like 2 cameras set up. I don't know which one I'm going with. If for some reason you've seen me stare at, not at you this whole time, that means that I've used the other camera. Camera 1, camera 2. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the dance scene. Best scene in this movie. It's creepy. It's cool. It's got music, which is really awesome. I liked it a lot. I wish there was a more interesting sit-down conversation between Gemma and Megan. Yeah, true. It kind of just, this movie resolves with like a fight where it's like the little girl busts out like a bigger robot and destroys Megan. And I'm like, oh, I kind of wish there was more like a conversation with this AI to kind of end the climax of this movie. I don't know. Excuse me. And then Megan sings again right before she's destroyed. As like a desperate attempt to like control this little girl's mind. I thought that was cool again. Every time she sings, it's like really cool. Anyway, then I say, yeah, I guess I do have a note on the CGI. Yeah, the CGI was great. Yeah, sometimes it does feel like there's a plastic head on like a human actor's body or something, but most of the time it looks really great. And then at the end, what basically, massive spoilers, but Megan gets destroyed. But right before she gets destroyed, they rip her face off and everything. And you see this like robot inside basically. And it's like terrifying because it's like non-human. It doesn't look like Megan at all anymore. It just looks like this alien creature that was inside someone's body. And is smarter than you, is more capable than you, is stronger than you. It's kind of a scary feeling. And desperately this creature is fighting to survive right now. I mean, it could do anything. I don't know, it was a scary kind of reframing of this AI that we've seen throughout this entire movie. But anyway, that was Megan. So next up, oh no, that's it. I have a YouTube video after this, but these are the 2023 rankings so far, which is on my top monitor, which is why I'm looking up. So we have Mushoku Tensei, the second best thing in the 4 out of 5s. It's not quite Berserk, I really like Berserk. Berserk should probably be a 5 out of 5, but it has a few issues. But anyway, Mushoku Tensei. One Piece Movie 1 is number 18 in the 4 out of 5s. 3 Football and Souls is like toward the middle to lower end of the 4 out of 5s. Then there's the One Piece live action, which is like on the upper end of the 3 out of 5s. And then there's Megan at the lower end of the 3 out of 5s. But yeah, that's my 2023 ranking so far. And then I have one YouTube video that I want to talk about. And this is one I reacted to stream the other day. So if you want to check out my streams, I did watch this and briefly talk about it. But I mainly just want to, so this is I Rant About RWBY Volume 9 while doing a RWBY impression by Amer Greystoke. 9 minutes long, and currently it has 2.8k views, and I think it should have way more. This is a really well done video, and it's so well done that I feel like there's no way that this is this person's main channel. But I did check their like Twitter, and I think it was their Twitter, and their like other like channel tabs, and it seems like this is their main channel. So I don't know how this like amazing video got made by this tiny channel, but anyway, this is basically a really like a fun, cute criticism of RWBY Volume 9, where the narration in this video is done by is basically an impression of RWBY, the main character of RWBY, and it sounds a lot like her. So it's really cool in that regard, like really novel and an interesting idea to kind of frame a criticism of a character by doing an impression of that character. But yeah, generally the idea that they're conveying is that you've got RWBY Volume 9, which is about RWBY. It's basically a very introspective season where it's about RWBY questioning her self-worth and whether she's the right person to be the leader. That's like the main story that you follow in Volume 9. And this person is criticizing it for two reasons. One is that RWBY hasn't been shown to be a good leader, and she doesn't even have to be the leader. There are other people who can basically do her exact same job. So why is she like becoming a leader? And that would be okay of a criticism to have if RWBY like learned and became better at being a leader or something over this season. But the second criticism that's in this video is the fact that the conclusion to RWBY's arc in this season is to accept herself and to be who she is, and that's enough. Despite her genuinely being a very bad leader that needs to change. So it's kind of RWBY's entire character arc in this season is what they're criticizing. And they also conclude basically by saying that Jean is basically RWBY, has RWBY's character arc, but it's just done infinitely better. And maybe Jean should be the leader instead of RWBY. And maybe that could have been an interesting resolution to RWBY's arc, is to delegate the leadership to Jean or something. I don't know, it could be cool. But I thought this was really interesting, both in terms of ideas and the style. So I have a few things on the style, and that's really it. But I just love the narration in terms of the RWBY impression. It's both like, it's interesting, it's novel, like it's something novel. It's kind of cute, like what a cool idea, like cute. It's also interesting to, for a video where you're analyzing the internal mind of a character, to kind of frame your analysis of the internal mind of the character in their voice is like a really interesting idea. I thought the narration itself was really great, like the way they emphasize the words and their humor and stuff. I thought it was really good. There's really simple editing where you're basically just cutting to different images. I thought that all worked really well. And there's great music, which is like timed to like certain elements of certain parts of the video are like timed to music and stuff. I thought that was really great. So yeah, overall, if you like RWBY, watch this video. You're probably not going to enjoy it if you don't know much about RWBY, but I thought this was really great. And I'd like to get into making more videos about RWBY and maybe in styles like this. Like imagine you could do this with any character if you use AI, but I think the element that I think this was an actual person doing an impression kind of does add to it. I don't think it would be the same if an AI was doing this, but maybe it would. I don't know. I'd have to think about that a bit more, but there is something to say about that. But anyway, that's my digest. But now, usually this is where I'd be like, these are my suggestions that I have been suggested to me and the things I want to watch. But if you want to see my suggestions, go to eliteari.com and you will see a website like I've got in this image here. Hopefully I put it on screen, where I have like my personal list of things that on my radar that I've had for a while that I want to watch, and all the stuff that people suggest. I've also got a tab there to keep track of it. So yeah. Now, I want my vision in the future is that I'll have like some way of people adding stuff through the website so you don't have to comment below, and maybe some way of choosing things based on like how many people want me to watch it, or like how long something is. Like the longer it is, the less likely I am to watch it or something like that. I don't know. This is a thing for the future. Maybe next month I'll like talk about this more. But for now, if you want to check out what other people have suggested and what's already on my list, my personal list, go to eliteari.com. But next month is a special month. All right. Next month is October, which is usually, I mean, it always is the Halloween month, but for me, usually it's when I watch a bunch of movies because I get in the Halloween spirit and I usually want to watch a few horror movies. Like last year, or a few years ago, I think I watched Prometheus and Alien and The Thing, and that was a great October. But yeah, basically what I'm going to do is that for the next month, besides the things that are ongoing, like Ahsoka or whatever, where I definitely have to, when that finishes, talk about it in my digest, everything else I think will just be movies. Not necessarily Halloween movies, but that would be good to watch like a bunch of like scary horror movies or something, or suspense movies. But generally next month will be like a movie thing digest where I'm going to watch a bunch of movies because I love watching movies. You can watch them easily. You can watch them in multiple sessions if you want to. They're nice and straightforward. But yeah, so comment with your movies, all right? I'm very likely to watch the stuff you comment this month, purely because movies are much easier for me to watch. And I'm excited. October's the month where I get to watch a bunch of movies. So yeah, try and stick to like one movie if you can, because I don't think I can watch everyone's like favorite 5 movies or something. But you know, if you're interested, at least comment down with your movies. And that's digest for this month. I hope you enjoyed and see you next month.